Hello, Scott Orchard here from CBRE Melbourne Middle Markets. Welcome to our office interview series 2.0. I'm joined today by Tobi from Creative Cubes, one of the co-founders. Welcome, Tobi.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me, mate.
No problem. Look, we've got to know one another quite well over the last 12 months or so, and obviously we've got a common interest. That's a love for the office, and obviously it plays such a crucial role, and obviously it's been a very interesting sector to follow and to see how it's been coping throughout the pandemic period so far. I guess I'd love just a quick introduction from yourself, and then a number of things that I'd love to talk through with you, just to give the listeners out there a little bit more of a feel for what's really happening out there at the moment with regards to the flexible workspace. How have you been coping through the pandemic, and what the future is going to look like for not only yourself but the sector?
Yeah, so again, really have high value on the relationship we hold with CBRE and you, Scott. So thank you very much for the opportunity to sit in front of your audience today. Look, it's very interesting, right? When the pandemic hit, there's so many waves of emotion that ran through. The first wave of emotion was, this is an opportunity, right? And this is an opportunity in regards to, we as an organization have validated flexible office, have validated the need for that in market. But with so many people with so many big commitments to large footprints across the country, or even the globe, the liability that carries for an organization in an unknown, like a pandemic, has been really scary for a lot of people. So from an opportunistic perspective, I definitely feel like the market has swum towards us over the last 6 months, and probably come forward somewhere between 5 and 10 years in comparison to sort of, if this would not have happened, we would have seen a lot of slower uptake of what we do, flexible office here at Creative Cubes. So it hasn't gone without its stresses and pains. We're a big culture piece for over 1,000 companies across our network and all of our buildings, and rapidly growing. And so we feel their pain. We're in the people business. I know we sell brick and mortar, or we sell private offices, by the day, if you need it by the day. But a lot of our members are here on 6, 12, 24 month, 36 month commitments, and they can expand and contract inside of us. So they might start off with a desk and end up with a 20-person office within a very quick period of time. We're in the people business as much as we're in the real estate business, yeah. And so we're a big culture piece for a lot of these organizations. So to hear them hurting really genuinely hurts our soul as well. Because we're so hyper-focused on delivering nothing but the best to our community. And community like the wider Melbourne community and the wider Australian community is hurting right now. And we definitely feel that.
Well, it's great to see you in the office today, and being deemed an essential service and looking after so many businesses that are needing your service so that they can keep operating their essential service is obviously important, and good to see that you're not stuck at home like I am at the moment. But I think, co-working, the last few years, it has really trended, and we could see that it's been starting to play such an important function in so many markets. I remember a stat, I think it was the 18 months up until last Christmas, there'd been roughly about 70,000 square metres of absorption towards the flexible workspace providers out of the 300,000 net absorption around all Australian capital cities. So it's around 20% of the leasing activity that had been happening. So clearly the pandemic's throwing a little bit of a spanner in the works. And I suppose pre-pandemic, you were hearing out in the marketplace that it was getting fairly competitive between some operators. There was sort of undercutting of costs and rates to try to get as many customers and bums on seats and that type of thing. And I suppose it was when anything is really trending, you see in a number of different sectors that those that are really good at their craft and doing things well will end up coming out on top and will set themselves a really exciting and successful future, and those that aren't doing it well will end up getting squeezed out. So what's the disruption that you're seeing at the moment? And I suppose what are the opportunities for those that are really focusing on the people, as you mentioned before? And the last question, not to throw too much at you at once, is I know that your business model is really centered heavily on that sense of community amongst the locations that you have. And I know you've got 3 existing operations and another 3 under construction at the moment, which is fantastic. But when there are so many more people that are working online and remotely, how do you continue to, I guess, instill that sense of community amongst all of your customers?
Yeah, so to answer the last part first, just because it's fresh, community is our North Star, right? You can be the biggest company in the world with a really bad culture and no amount of money can get you in the doors here at Creative Cubes. We're really precious about who's in the door. We're not exclusive, but we just don't allow bad apples to ruin the cart, yeah? So we take a lot of pride in that. And we're also leaders. So my leadership team and our organization, or org-wide, we've got a bunch of really strong, talented people that our community looks up to. Not in hierarchical position, but from a leadership perspective. And so we understand intently our role that we play within their organizations. So being there for them in the good times is equally as important as being there in the bad times. And I would say that it's probably even stronger for our brand and our culture to just be there when the times are really tough, yeah? And so I don't think it gets much worse than this, God forbid, but our community has leaned in on us and we've leaned in on them, and together we've become stronger. In terms of like where you brought the question out in the first place, it's very easy to be price competitive when you've got venture capital into the billions of dollars and you're just trying to buy market share. But the reality is that's not how this game is played. This game is played based on relationships. This game is placed on integrity. And a lot of end users, I know we're in the B2B space, like we serve business to business, but we treat them like consumers here at Creative Cubes anyway. Those people need to have confidence that the workplace is going to be sustained, that they're not going to show up one day and the doors are going to be locked and all their stuff's inside. We've heard horrible stories globally about this sort of stuff. I haven't heard of that in Australia. But what's really, really important, and a bunch of really top operators, I'm part of the network with them. We talk all the time. We have deep relationships with some of the bigger players in the space. And behind closed doors, we're all kind of working together. There are a few outcasts that are trying to disrupt and create an inequality. But behind the doors, we respect the guys that operate in the city. They respect that we're sort of city fringe and suburbia markets. There's guys that operate even further out, in real suburbia, 20, 30 kilometers from CBD. But we're all in this constant feedback loop. And what's really beautiful about this space and this industry is, unlike being a product business or a service business, where I come to you, Scott, and you've got enough space on the shelf to put my pair of shoes or another company's pair of shoes, and I'm like, hey, I'll give you a bigger incentive, and we're fighting for that shelf space. The reality is, inside the buildings alone, like in Richmond, right, we're right next door. I say we're right next door. We're probably about 250 meters away from Spaces. Spaces from IWG, the International Work Group. People coming from South Yarra end don't want to walk the extra 300 meters to our end. And likewise, the people coming from the Richmond end are not interested in going to the South Yarra. And so there's enough customer that both Spaces and Creative Cubes, specifically in Richmond, have got enough integrity and respect for one another that there's enough business where we don't have to just completely prostitute our products at a loss to win over a customer that's never going to yield, and we're going to be behind all the time. So I think those days of trying to compete are done. I think the network behind the closed doors, or the operators behind closed doors, are really working with each other and sharing info and intel and helping others. I know we're doing a lot ourselves to help others learn and grow, because as an industry, you talk about a 30% growth there. We're only 2.5% of net lettable area, flexible office space. So I see like the opportunity is not to try and knock off another operator, but it's actually the traditional lease that's more of a competitor than the other operators. And the traditional lease has taken its own beating over the last 6 months, that the market is there for an operators that can have integrity, that can deliver an amazing experience, that really pride themselves on their craft. This is not a rent arbitrage business. This is a service business. Yeah, this is a very sophisticated layer of service that goes over and above a slab of concrete and a pane of glass.
Okay, and I presume that as it sits at the moment, and today, as we have this conversation, we're still in stage 4 lockdown in Melbourne. So I presume that your physical attendance to the offices is obviously down at the moment, even though you still are catering for essential workers and a few people that are still needing to go about their business. What's inquiry been like from, I guess, not just your sole operator and perhaps some of the startups, but larger businesses where it's just all about flexibility at the moment? Because I know that, yes, there's more sublease space that's coming available in the market, and then there's traditional leasing space as well. But from what I'm picking up, in speaking to landlords, talking to our leasing team as well, is that tenants obviously are not wanting to make those really long-term commitments right now. They're wanting to, I guess, establish a bit of a bridge to get through all this current turbulence before making longer-term commitments. So that's where I see you being very well placed to cater for that flexibility that's in such high demand at the moment.
Yeah, so it's actually a two-headed monster, Scott, with love and respect. We're seeing the larger companies go, hey, remote working has worked really well for us, but we can't have our staff getting sore back sitting at the kitchen table in a non-ergonomic chair, or not being able to stand and work. All of our desks here sit stand. If you haven't noticed, I'm standing. But so there's that sort of like, how do I, as a head of HR or head of people and culture at an organization, make sure that my staff are comfortable to be able to go and do their best work? Do my staff really need to get on the train, run the risk of a COVID outbreak, run the risk of spending 2 hours in commute each day, so on and so forth? Or can I plug them into a safe, happy environment in the local neighborhood? I think that's something that's absolutely rearing its head. We're seeing a lot of inquiry from the top end of town, the larger companies that would never, ever consider us or consider flex as an option. But we've been forced into that world now, and that's just presented a really nice opportunity for us. The second head to that monster is actually landlords. A lot of landlords are reaching us in large numbers with more than one property to say, hey, you guys, Creative Cubes, unlock the SME to 200 person sort of size corporations. I've got anywhere from 1 to 5,000 square meters per building or per asset that I can no longer get a lease done on because there's just no one wanting that lock-in. Is there a way that we can come to you with a management, in a management agreement? That doesn't sit well with us in terms of management agreement, because it's just not the way in which we're built. But we are very, very interested and entertaining a ton of these conversations at the moment around partnership. Partnership management agreement, it may feel like it's the same thing, but to us, it's a fundamental difference. The partnership is, how can we serve you, the landlord, by unlocking the power and access to these 1 to 200 person size SMEs and large corporates? And we actually actively deploy what we do really, really well inside of these locations to help the landlords not only get their net rent, but we've got some deals that are sort of somewhere between 20 and 30% above net rent in exchange for the partnership, as part of the partnership. So in the future, when all these landlords start to have vacancies, I can see the second part of our business, which is a new product and service that we've developed during COVID. We feel like we can partner very, very strongly with the landlord, unlock a ton of potential. We only want the lower floors anyway, so it's sort of like the runt end of the litter in terms of inventory available. But we can commercialize that and not only get their market rents, but in some cases, we are doing deals where landlords are yielding 20 to 30% above net rent in exchange for this partnership agreement. And we've worked out a really strong, sophisticated, transparent way for us to be able to plug in and help the landlord by helping the 1 to 200 person SME, large corp or small corporate. And everyone in that chain, the end user, the landlord, those guys win. And as a result, we become successful as well.
Yeah, I think that'll be of great interest to a lot of landlords that perhaps have got some forthcoming expiries or some existing vacancy in their buildings, but they know that they're in a very attractive, cosmopolitan, well-connected activity centre style location that's going to be, I guess, a great place for people to be able to come to without necessarily needing to commute all the way into the CBD. It's been no surprise, and there's been plenty of commentary over the last few months about this decentralisation notion and how more businesses will look, as you say, look to get I guess, opportunities for their workforce to engage and to work remotely. What does your office look like now? I mean, what are some of the changes that you've had to make from a social distancing and hygiene protocol perspective? Because I guess there are still a lot of bigger businesses that are yet to get into their offices after being locked out for a long period of time. You've managed to continue operating through. So what are some of the things that you've done now already that have worked well, that are going to be helpful for other landlords to get their head around?
Yeah, so I mean, COVID is obviously a huge concern. We do COVID cleaning every night, so the place is always sanitary. It's always very clean. There's not a night that's passed on. We do that every night, and it's out of the box. In terms of like our offering and social distancing, yeah, we have signage up around the space. We have a lot of sanitary products and stuff littered throughout the buildings. But I think the value that we actually offer is, hey, that 4-person office, we're actually now, the member wants to actually only put 3 people in there, but can they get the other 2-person office on the other side as well and add that 3rd person? So in terms of like the distance side of things, our spaces were already more than 1 to 4 square meters in terms of what the government deems an acceptable space and safe distance. But if people are really like, look, I just really want extra space, or I want to double, I want to go 1 to 8, 1 to 10, whatever the number is, square meters, we have the ability to sort of offer you the next room. And you can split your staff. If you have 8 staff, you can split them over, 4 twos. One 6 and a 2. Like, there's just so much flexibility in order to be able to accommodate whatever it is that person or that organization's needs are.
So is there more demand for private offices compared to, I guess, just the more traditional co-working as such with the open desks?
It's interesting, like we're a very strong co-working brand, but actually 85% of our revenue is actually derived from private offices. Co-working is our open plan desks. They're very popular. Again, they're also very COVID safe in terms of social distancing safe, should I say. And a lot of companies actually take the private office for 2, 4, 5, 6, 10 people, but then have a bank of desks on the exterior that just allow for that overflow and that space and convenience. But 85% of our monthly revenue is definitely driven via private offices, and the co-working product or the open plan desk product is a product that's bolted on, not exclusively, but it's a product that's bolted on to allow for that expansion and contraction very quickly.
Okay, well, look, we've covered a fair bit of ground there and conscious of time, obviously. So, look, people will know how to get in touch with you if they wanted to engage a little bit more on some of the things that you mentioned, or there are landlords that were interested in having a talk to you about some opportunities within their buildings as well. But it's great to see that you've continued to operate throughout, that you've got a product there that obviously is very attractive to the market and seem well placed for Victoria and Australia and the world's recovery, I guess, over the next couple of years. So it's been great talking to you, Tobi, and thank you very much.
Likewise. Mate, Scott, thank you so much. Cheers.